Welcome to the Kara's Cure Show, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. I'm Kara Sundlin. Are you feeling stuck? Maybe you've tried manifesting or goal setting, and yet something still feels like it's getting in the way, and you're not realizing what you want to make happen. Well, to find out what's blocking you, many have gone to Oliver Nino, who is a spiritual advisor. He's also called the spiritual activator. And he's going to explain to us why resetting your energy actually cleanses your mental state in the same way that dietary changes can cleanse your body. Oliver, thank you so much for being with us.
Tara, thanks so much for having me.
You know, I think for some of our audience, they're going to be really in tune and know all about what we're talking about with energy, and others is going to be kind of new. But let's just talk about the premise that we are all energy, right? That's something that Oprah has said. That's something that is becoming more mainstream, that yes, we're a body, but we're all energy.
Yes, and the thing is, we're all energy and we're affected by energy every single day. For example, like, have you ever had it to where you're feeling okay and calm, and the next thing you know, you walk into a mall or a concert or a crowded area, and next thing you know, you're like, whoa, what is that? You feel overwhelmed. And the reason why that happens is because outside energy can affect us. Just like when you're thinking of somebody, next thing you know, they text you or call you. We're all connected, even though, someone's not in front of us. Energy can travel a distance.
Yeah. So, and we've all experienced that when you walk in a room and you're like, I don't know what's going on, but it doesn't feel good in here. Someone must have just had a big fight.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So the thing that people don't realize is that actually compounds, because you might be like, oh, wow, someone's anxious and I'm experiencing it. No big deal. Now it's inside your body, right? Next thing you know, you're making decisions based on it. You're talking to a loved one and you're anxious, you're bringing it to work, and now your decisions are clouded. So yes, energy is super important to master, because once it piles up, next thing you know, you're living a life that might not even be your own,
So just like we clean our house or we sometimes take away bad foods, you say we really need to be aware. Another level of health is cleaning our energy. How do we do that in a simple way?
So simple ways are like the things that we have a natural affinity to, but we might not do often. For some, it is they like being under the sun. Sunlight helps clear them, or they're running outside in nature barefoot, and the earth grounds them, therefore clears them. For some, it's physical movement, right? For my wife, like, she has to wake up in the morning and she's got to do yoga, dance, or work out. And when you're moving your body, you're moving all the excess energy that's kind of like stuck and trapped, right? For some, it's journaling. For some, it's a salt bath. For some, it's being with animals, or being in nature. So it's different for different people. But the cool thing about it is we already have a natural affinity to what clears us. We just have to do it more often.
And there's no one thing then for everyone, right? So it might be that on one day when you're really tired, you would take an Epsom salt bath, and another day you might need to go for a run. But let's just talk about a bath, right? That's something simple. It's something that I do, and I've even given friends when they're stressed, I give them Epsom salt. So talk about just even the science behind why taking a salt bath can really clear our energy.
Right, because so it's similar to going to the ocean. The ocean has clearing properties. The salt clears our energetic center, right? Our chakras and all that stuff. So what ends up happening is when you're in water, water is a conductor of energy, right? So with salt, what ends up happening is you're there, all of a sudden your energetic body, all your chakras get clear and clean, and next thing you know, you have more clarity, you have more energy. You're not, the thing that was bothering you isn't bothering you as much anymore, right? And so for me, that works all the time. Now, if the day gets too intense, Kara, you've got to do more, right? Because sometimes, like, hey, you have a natural day, you do a salt bath, you're good. But if life happens to you, then you got to up it a bit and do more and match the level of the things that are coming at you.
Okay. So you've written a book. I think we have a picture of the cover. It's called Spiritual Activator: 5 Steps to Clearing, Unblocking, and Protecting Your Energy to Attract More Love, Joy, and Purpose. So at least you give us a 5-step process. But let's say it's been a day. What do we do on those days?
Oh, when it's a bad day, I give myself permission just to have like a 1 hour, even a half day self-care day. Because let's say someone's dealing with grief. That might be a day or two that you need to take just to take care of yourself, so you're able to deal with the things that are coming at you externally. So for me, yes, every single day I have a standard, a basis of the things that I do, whether it's intention, like, crystals, incense, energy work. But if it's an intense day or I'm having an intense situation I'm going to, then I'm going to do way more than I normally do because the situation calls for it.
Okay, so what you mean by doing way more is sometimes you have to do less. Because if you have all this intense energy coming at you,
Yeah.
we tend to then, don't know why, but we get overwhelmed. We might be highly reactive. That's our signal that we need to cleanse our
Yeah.
energy.
Yes, I what I mean by do more is do more self-care. Do more of like you're in solitude, maybe you're 30 minutes by yourself, no technology, salt bath, you're running outside, talking to a loved one, you're watching something that makes you laugh, just things that kind of calm down the energetic and also nervous system so you can actually relax and not be in fight or flight mode too much or overheat,
Yeah. So you've broken this down and you have a 5-step process. I want to talk about in the
Yeah.
book, you go through day by day. So let's start days 1 through 3. We need to protect our energy by setting an intention.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
So intentions are actually super powerful. It's super underrated. But if you think about all the stories that we hear about, somebody not feeling well and then a loved one prays for them and then they feel better all of a sudden, right? That is a form of intention. So intention is what it is. You just say it. There's no format to it. I like being like, I want to release, all negativity I've absorbed throughout the day for the highest good of all. Or let's say if I'm about to go out, I might be like, I want to protect myself from absorbing any negativity from people in the mall, for the next 2 to 3 hours, like, so be it. And the thing is, we sometimes forget the power of the spoken word with a pure intention. And a lot of times, people don't want to do it because they think it's so simple, but sometimes what's simple is what works really, really well. And intentions is one of them.
A lot of us are highly sensitive. I can definitely feel that when I go to a mall. I can get, I call malicious, overwhelmed or whatever.
Yeah.
But you say part of it, even just imagining maybe a white light around you or playing with color to protect you from negative energy. How do you do that?
So for me, it's pretty simple. Like I like white. For some people, they can use purple or gold or whatever comes to them. So I imagine light coming down from the sky, right? And then filling me up with light. So I'm filled up. And then it fills up, creates a bubble around me. And this bubble is, I can make it as big or as small or as thick as I want. And all the external energy that comes just can't get in. So a lot of times, like, we do this, we do bubbles. For some people, they like pyramids or they like being inside a whirlwind or like a little tornado, and it works for them, right? And for some people, they even want layering. They do 3 bubbles, like, and 3 different colors till they feel super peaceful and protected before they step out.
And the power of visualization, we know this with Olympians, we know this in other places. You might be thinking, oh, well, isn't it kind of woohoo? We know this works. Like our inner cells actually respond to how we visualize. So taking some deep breaths and having the intention to put a shield around us can be very powerful.
Absolutely. I mean, there's lots of studies of visualization of how powerful it can be, how relaxing it can be. And when you're mixing it with color therapy, like the colors that come in, and you're mixing it with intention, and you're mixing it with the shape. Now you're mixing 3 different things that you're layering: intention, the shape, visualization, and then the color. It adds a lot of layers to it, and makes it like way more effective than just doing one thing, in my experience.
I want to talk a little bit about your story, because you grew up, you were a super overwhelmed kid, right? I know you're an energy healer now. You've dealt with some major celebrities, help them. You get all those secret phone calls when they're in trouble, which I'd love to hear about that, and we'll talk about that too. But as a kid, you felt just out of place and angry and irritable a lot.
Yes, I didn't feel like I belonged. I thought I was the outsider. I got bullied a lot. I related a lot with older folks versus kids that are my age. And it was just like, I just had this roller coaster of emotions. Now looking back, I'm like, wow, I was empathic. I was absorbing everybody's energies, but back then I didn't really have an outlet to release it. So I kind of stored it, and it kind of caused me to go down like a little bit more of a sadder path earlier on, because I just didn't know what to do with all that energy.
Mm-hmm. And I think we need to certainly, even that language, teaching our kids. A lot of people rightfully, it's great that people are talking about what does it mean to be an empath, how empathic
Yeah.
are you, how sensitive you are you an HSP, a highly sensitive person? Even the fact that we
Yeah.
have vocabulary now is different. But let's say I have a child like that who's very sensitive, and I try to talk to her. But if kids are younger like that, and you're noticing that sometimes they come home from a birthday party and they're just really wiped out, or they're irritable when they get home from school, and there's not a reason, how do you help them?
Perfect example, because I have a 4-year-old and a 12-year-old. So our 4-year-old knows to take deep breaths, and he just, even if it's just like 3 seconds in and hold it for 3 and exhale for 3 and do it for 3 or 4 times, he feels way better. And when his friends actually came over here the other day, one of his friends was stressed, and he was like, just take a deep breath. Right? So he's little 4-year-olds now coaching his friend, while our 12-year-old knows, he's more of a has to work out, has to run a little bit, has to do a salt bath. And then we have them ask the question that we ask ourselves: is this mine? Is this energy even mine? If not, who am I attached to? And our 12-year-old will be like, well, I talked to one of my friends who was really sad. And then they're like, there you go. Right. So a lot of it is awareness of this energy. We try to a lot of times take ownership of it. But what if we ask the question, is this energy mine? Who does this belong to? Who did I talk to? And when you know that it's not yours, a lot of times it gives you the sense of relief to be able to kind of release it and be like, okay, it's not even mine.
Yeah, and not that we want to get into a blame, because I can picture that with my kids.
Yeah.
Well, so and so made me feel bad because of this. So we want to. The point of learning this is simple ways that we can feel better. Talk a little bit about your gifts, like how you see people, how you see energy. And I know I think we all have this to a certain extent, but
Yeah.
as far as how it's come to you and how you've been able to help people really heal and unblock themselves.
Got it. So a lot of people have different ways of doing it. For some people, I have like students of mine that they can see things and it's very detailed and it's like Shakespeare. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing, right? For me, it's a little different. I just know things. I'm around people and I just have a feeling of what it is, or kind of words come in. I'm not so much of a visual person. So if I'm working with somebody and their heart is blocked, it's going to be like, heart blocked, and I feel it in my body what that block feels like. So it's for a moment it's discomfort. It's not comfortable because I'm feeling what it is, but it gives me empathy and context as to what they're going through, which motivates me to help them release it further because I know what they're going through. But for me, it's more feeling and knowing.
How can these energy blocks really keep us stuck? Like maybe we're trying to bring in more money, or maybe we're trying to bring in that job or partner we want. What happens with these energy blocks?
A lot of the times they have counter energy to it. So for example, if your heart is blocked, you were bullied like me in high school and you were made fun of, and now you think the world's not safe, people out there to hurt me. Those thought patterns have an energy to it, right? So now you're thinking the world's not safe, and so the thought has energy. Now you feel probably angry or sad. That has energy. Next thing you know, right, that's in your energetic field, and you're attracting people that match that energy. Therefore, the ones that you really, really want to have, whether it's unconditional love or or a fun type of relationship, you can't because they don't match that vibration that your blocks are in. So it's kind of like trying to drive your car with emergency brakes on. You're going nowhere fast. So for me, the blocks are the first to go because when they're there, it's hard for you to get to where you want to go.
So let's take you through the day. I had a lot of people might think, oh, I don't have time for this, or I don't this. But I did an interview with Jonathan Edwards, the famous psychic, and he said nobody says they don't have time to shower. I mean, this is something you could do in the morning, right? Even the intention to clear your energy while you're in the shower and protect yourself. What would that look like?
Yes. So a lot of the times, and by the way, John Edwards is a good friend. He just interviewed me as well. But the thing is, people don't realize that it can be seconds. It doesn't have to be long. If I can go out there because the sun is extremely healing. I can go out there, have the sun like shining in my face, put my hand over my heart and breathe in the healing energy of the sun and be conscious about it. And it takes me 30 to 60 seconds to breathe that in and do it a couple of times for me to feel better. If I go to the shower, I can have the intention of, because water is healing, as the water is running down my face and my body, it is rinsing and cleansing away all the muck, all the energy, all the attachments that no longer serve me. They're dragging me down as I'm going to the shower. So it can be as you're going through day-to-day life. If you're driving through, to work, you can listen to music that can clear your energy as well. So it doesn't have to be something extra. You can do it you can integrate it while you're going by your day-to-day life. if you're really, really busy.
Yeah, and I guess we all have this, right? I know you've worked with some famous folks, a couple people that I guess you're allowed to list. Demi Moore,
Yep.
Gwyneth Paltrow, Tony Robbins, some CEOs, some billionaires.
Yep.
People will think, oh, he's a billionaire. What does he have to worry about? He's not blocked. But I mean, we all to an extent have this. Like, talk us through when you do a healing session, what it looks like and how you help.
So a lot of the times, like, it's not all about just money or fame. When people come to me, a lot of the times it's the overall quality of life. Are you happy? Are you living in your full potential? Is your body performing the way it needs to be? Is it, are you getting sleep? Like, and for a lot of times it's like, are your kids happy? Is your family happy? What's next for me? Right. So when I meet people, a lot of the times I'm chatting with them and it comes to me what I need to work on. And then for the most part, it is a 20 or 30-minute silent session. And I'm scanning all the areas of the body where there's blocks that I'm allowed to remove. And I remove them and I replace them. And also I replace them with love, and I replace them with just energy that's like, empowering to them. And then if there are any spiritual gifts that I'm allowed to kind of like work on or activate, I work on that as well. But for the most part, I work primarily on removing the blocks first, and then restoring their entire energetic field to what it's supposed to be. And then from there, then yes, they can step into like, higher energy or spiritual gifts or more intuition, right? And start to kind of practice those. But for the very beginning, it's always figuring out where the blocks are and removing them lovingly.
So I think everyone would love to have someone like you who's interested in this, but we can't always call someone like you, and you have your own program, which we can talk about in a minute. But talk a little bit about the book and as the spiritual activator, and how these 5 steps can be used. So maybe we can do some of this on our own. You want people to make this more of a daily practice, right?
Yeah, and that's what I wrote the book for, because my goal is to be able to envelop the entire world with love and teach them the skills. But I know I'm just one person, right? So the book is teaching people how to do it by themselves, how to go ahead and really tune into their energy, where the blocks are, how do you remove it? What are the tools that you can use for some people? For me, I'm a big believer that I am the tool, right? But at the very beginning, I had tools like crystals that I use, or incense, and those are great tools that you can use to kind of like get into things. But eventually, you're going to realize, okay, if I'm in a plane and I have none of these, how do I clear myself? Oh, I'm the tool, and you can learn how to do it. So that's what the book is all about. And the cool thing about it is, if there's nothing else that you get out of this, is intention is super powerful. If you just set the intention, like, of what you want, right? And you do that, and you do the things. There are self-care mechanisms, and I know it sounds kind of like boring for some, self-care, but you don't realize when you do this, what ends up happening is you're releasing all the external influence on you, so that your nature can shine through. And when you're in your nature, when you're in your element, you're on. Like, you're manifesting as fast. You feel good, and you're creating your reality versus just dealing with all the muck that you're absorbing. So self-care, I think it's more oxygen for the soul. It's much needed. It's very underrated. But if you do it, and you start doing it daily or multiple times a day, you're gonna start seeing a increase in quality of life.
Yeah, I think it's an important message. I know it's sort of a buzzword online, and I'm glad about that. And we just had a story in the news today as we approach Mother's Day weekend that, moms really need self-care. Let them have some time where they're not doing anything, because caregivers can get so burnt out. And that's also part of it, right? If we come home from a stressful day at work and then we wonder why our kids are really misbehaving or talking back or seem strange. I mean, children absorb our energy, right? So we got to start with ourselves. Absolutely. If we want to have a more peaceful home.
Yep, I can't agree with you more. We have a lot of moms that actually come, and a lot of times I would say about 30% of our customers that come are moms that want to help their kids, and every single time we're like, you don't have to help the kids. Focus on you. And they're like, but I want to fix the kid. We're like, focus on you. And every single time when they focus on themselves, the kid's behavior gets better. Because here's the thing, as parents, we are the predominant environment energetically for our kids. And guess what? They can also be sensitive and empathic. So a lot of times they can mirror what's going on internally with you. So if you're not doing self-care and because you're guilty, or you don't think you have time, or you're like, I have to do all these different things before I can do it, right? And you have that, they can feel it. And a lot of times they can reflect that on you. And so what you're seeing is a reflection of your own internal. And as you calm down, you realize they're calming down, right? So I've seen that a lot,
Yes.
which is empowering for parents, because that means that you can impact your child positively by working on you.
Yes. And a lot of people will think I don't have time to meditate, or I don't have time to these things. And I know where you sit, we'd be like, well, we have to do the things, make time for the things, the only things that matter. I remember being with another spiritual educator, Gabrielle Bernstein, and she came into a house with 4 kids, and we're like, what mom has time to meditate? And she's like, just sit down and let's do this. And it was amazing. All these little kids came and sat, there were 4 of them. They just came and sat next to us. And she would say, and it's come to agree, they were just magnetized by our peace. So, you know, sometimes if you just sit down and take some breaths, call it what you want, you're not only setting a good role model, but your kids really will feel that, and then they start to calm down, which can only be good for us.
Yeah, and the thing when it comes to meditation, I mean, I've got this whole spin on it because I can't meditate, to be honest, the way traditional meditation looks like.
Yeah.
But the way I look at it is, why do people meditate? What do they want? Do they want clarity? Do they want peace? Do they want to get answers? Do they want to feel disconnected? And then when you figure out what you're doing it for, there are things in your life that get you there. For some people, meditation is cooking, or it's gardening, or it's going for a run, right? Or it's being by themselves, or it's just, you know, journaling. So a lot of the times, like when you expand how we can get there, there's multiple ways to get to the desired outcome. And meditation is beautiful if it works for you. But if it doesn't, don't beat yourself up and ask yourself, what are you doing it for? And what are other vehicles that can get you there? So you're not guilting and shaming yourself and spiraling energetically when you realize, oh, I can't even meditate. But figure out what you already, you know, naturally do, and try that out and see how it works, you know?
And we're not saying energy therapy is a replacement for medical care at all, but you have seen in your practice that when people learn to take care of their energy, and they learn the tools of energy healing, or they get an energy healing from someone who's skilled at it like you, it can be immediate. The effects and the feelings and the healing can be immediate. Can you talk about some of what you've witnessed?
Sure. It's interesting because when I go, and I've worked on this, when I go into any kind of healing, I release everything to higher power. Like, and I'm just a vessel, a tool for doing the work. So when I go in there, I have 0 expectations. My rule is like, whatever's for the highest good of all, that's what's going to happen. So yeah, there are times where I'm working on people and I don't see anything. And then 2 weeks later, a month later, they're like, oh my gosh. Because a lot of times what I did took time to show up in the real world, but it already happened. The seed was planted, and it just took time for it to unfold, right? And there are times where I'm working on somebody, and for some reason, like, you know, it's for the highest good for them right now to feel better. And I've seen people like literally get off their canes, or they've had surgeries and they can't, you know, multiple surgeries, and they can't go past a certain range, and they're able to. And either way, I mean, I just celebrate and I'm grateful. But I've seen some pretty crazy stuff. But for me, it's always like a surrender of like, hey, whatever's supposed to happen can happen. But I've seen a lot of things that I'm like, that doesn't make sense. And I still pinch myself every now and then and be like, wow, I'm blessed to be able to do this kind of work.
Yeah, and for the way that you want us to understand it is, we have a mental body, an energy body, and a physical body. So when people are dealing with physical symptoms of sickness or pain or all these kinds of things, talk about what that looks like, or what it energetically is in the body, and why it's so important to remove those energy blocks.
Right, because sometimes I've seen it to where sometimes when somebody's feeling, let's say, I'll give you an example. I had a gal that came to my workshops, and she wasn't able to. She came to me because she had they call it debilitating social anxiety. She was not able to do a grocery store run by herself for 15 years, right? She's been on medications. She couldn't do it. Every time she would go down an aisle, halfway through, she would call a friend to pick her up, and she would be gone, right? And she came to me, and I was like, okay, let me teach you how to protect yourself. Step number 1. So she figured out a structure that worked for her, the light and all that. For her, it was more of a cylinder, like spinning really, really fast with blades on each end, right? So she picked that one, and then 30 days later, I heard from her, and she's like, Oliver, you're never gonna guess what happened. I was like, what? I did my first grocery store run by myself, and I felt nothing, right? So for that example, like she couldn't do it, and it was affecting her physically. She was actually using a cane when I saw her, because all the external energy was so intense, weighing on her to where she had no energy left for herself. So when she started protecting her energy, she didn't take that on. Next thing you know, her energy returned back to her, and it's a lot. And now that energy can go into fueling you so you can feel better and you can feel vibrant. Next time I saw her, I was actually in shock because she went to the bathroom, and I looked at all the other people and I'm like, is it just me, or is she not using her cane anymore? She didn't bring her cane that trip. And it was all because of protecting her energy. So sometimes our external can affect us so much that it weighs on our body, because it's day after day after day after day, to where it affects the body. Because you're right, we have the energy, mind, and body connection. So that's one of the examples to where I'm like, wow, something so simple can have such drastic effects once you figure out that's what's causing your body to kind of shut down in a bit,
Yeah, in our final few minutes together, I want to talk about kids because I know a lot of parents are struggling and the kids are super sensitive. They're having a tough time being in school. They're having a tough time with other kids. They might be acting out. And some of these kids are just really highly sensitive, empathic kids, right? So how do we help them?
We have to understand them. That's the biggest thing. Each kid is unique. So you have a kid, for example, that just wants to run around outside. Some parents might be like, you're running around too much, stop it. But what if they're running around because there's so much energy flowing through them and that's their way of releasing it? Or a kid just wants to play, right? And what if the way they play is the way for a moment they disconnect from all the world's input, so they can be in their nature. And when they're in their nature, they're being cleared. When we look at kids, they're divine, and there's just this sense to where they do it so naturally. The clues are when we look at ourselves as kids, like look at what we love to do. And there's a reason why we did that all the time. It helps clear us, it helps keep us connected, and deal with everything going on. So my advice for parents is like, don't judge your kids, understand them. Even though they're different, don't try to put them in a box. Understand, who are they? What do they need? And realize that yes, it might look weird if you're looking at it from the lenses of what another parent wants their kid to do. But if you look at it from the lenses of, my kid is also, beyond being human, he's also an energetic body, a spiritual being in this shell. Why are they doing what they're doing? So when you come at it from a fresh perspective, you might learn a thing or two as to how your kid is and how unique your kid is. And once you start safeguarding and protecting the uniqueness of your kid and not apologizing for it, I think things start to change, because now you're supporting your kid's nature versus trying to get your kid to be something that your kid's not.
Right. And so you've put a lot of this, you've had decades of healing experience. Before, you used to just do it word of mouth, I guess, in private. But I want to let folks know one more time. The book is called Spiritual Activator: 5 Steps to Clearing, Unblocking, and Protecting Your Energy to Attract More Love, Joy, and Purpose. I assume we can get this everywhere, Oliver, and also shout out your website or social so people can find out more and learn more from you.
Yes, it's everywhere. It's in Amazon, Barnes & Noble, local stores. And yeah, I'm all over the place. I'm on Instagram at Spiritual Activator, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok. I mean, we've got like close to 3 million followers on all platforms there. So it's pretty fun. And I post all my good stuff. If you guys are looking for, if you're busy and you're like, hey, I just want to get a 30-60-second tip, I'm there giving techniques almost every single day of things that you can do, on the daily as well. So lots of valuable stuff.
Thank you, Oliver. So happy to have you. Thank you all for being here for CURES, where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. You can also find more information by following me at Cara Sundlin. Have a great day, everyone, and be well.